Tony Stark wasn't the type to do things halfway. When he decided to focus on something, it wasn't just about reaching the goal. It was about doing even better than anyone thought possible, even better than he thought he could. Robotics had always interested him, and MIT gave him the perfect place to explore it. But Tony didn't want to just use the university's resources. He wanted his own space, where he could work without any limits or rules, so he could create freely and without anyone getting in the way. His mom didn't take any time to think when he called her with his request. "Mom, I need a place to myself," Tony said. "Somewhere I can focus on my work without people always watching me." Maria's voice was kind but clear. "Tony, is this because of your studies? Or is this one of your, Mom," he cut in, "it's not about school. It's something much more important. There's a competition coming up and I plan to do something big." Maria chuckled gently. "All right, Tony. But remember, if you cause any damage, you're the one who has to fix it." While Maria taking care of the place, Tony decided to begin the outlines for his project. His first major goal was to design robots for an upcoming robotics competition at MIT. The challenge: build a pair of autonomous robots capable of completing complex tasks with limited human intervention. The robots needed to exhibit teamwork, adaptability, and efficiency. He decided to go with the OG robot arms that Tony created in the MCU, Dummy, a helper bot arm capable of heavy lifting and multi-purpose utility, and U, a more analytical and efficient counterpart. Together, they would complement each other's strengths and weaknesses. Within weeks, the small brick building a few blocks from campus became his private sanctuary. Stark Labs 1.0, as he jokingly called it. It wasn't much to look at, a modest two-story structure with a basement, but it was all his. The ground floor housed his workbenches and machinery, the second floor had a small lounge for late-night crashes, and the basement, well, that was where the magic would happen. Well, Tony was kinda surprised to see that his dad, who became an alcoholic man, decided to help him with the materials and equipment. Later he called his mom to ask about the situation, and he was glad to know that Howard's drinking problem got under control and he was even taking therapy. He was glad to know the situation. With him exposing Hydra agents from the S.H.I.E.L.D.'s facilities and even mending his relationship with Hank, it must have taken a huge pressure off Howard's shoulders. He just hoped that his father would continue this healthy path. After that, he began the main project. Tony began with a whiteboard filled with scribbles, sketches, and equations. The vision for Dummy was clear: a single robotic arm on a mobile base, designed to assist with repetitive tasks while being endearingly human in its interactions. You, on the other hand, would have a more streamlined, multifunctional design, with sensors and AI tailored for precision and problem solving. Tony Stark wasn't the type to let setbacks slow him down, but even with an endless supply of materials from his dad, creating Dummy and You wasn't as easy as he had hoped. Over 4 months, Stark Labs 1.0 became a whirlwind of late nights, holographic projections, and constant revisions that he began by outlining the core objectives for his project. He split his work into 3 phases: 1. Build Dummy, a mobile robotic arm for heavy lifting and basic tasks. 2. Develop You, a precision-oriented analytical counterpart. 3. If time allows, attempt a humanoid design. He started with Dummy. Using high-grade servo motors, industrial-grade steel alloys, and gyroscopic stabilizers provided by Howard, Tony assembled the robotic arm. Dummy's base proved problematic. It struggled to move smoothly on uneven surfaces. He redesigned it twice, switching from simple wheels to an omnidirectional track system, which allowed the arm to pivot and glide with precision. Despite setbacks, Tony maintained a relentless pace. When he wasn't soldering circuits or tweaking motor calibrations, he was feeding Hermes, his AI assistant, with new algorithms. He wanted Hermes to not just assist him but also learn from mistakes and anticipate needs. By the second month, Dummy was functional, though imperfect. It could lift heavy objects and follow basic commands, but its grip was inconsistent, and its movements lacked finesse. One memorable incident involved Dummy flinging a wrench across the lab during a test. "Great aim," Tony muttered, rubbing his temple, but not quite what I need. With Hermes's help, Tony optimized Dummy's grip mechanics, adding force sensors to prevent overexertion. By the end of the month, Dummy could delicately pick up a glass without shattering it, an achievement Tony celebrated with a smirk and a can of soda. Next, he turned his attention to you. Unlike Dummy, you required a higher level of precision and complexity. Using lightweight alloys and advanced LiDAR sensors, Tony designed you to be faster and more agile. Its core feature was a modular tool system, allowing it to swap attachments for various tasks. By the third month, Dummy and you were performing well enough that Tony's mind began to wander toward his third, more ambitious idea, Project Elena, a humanoid robot that he watched the robotic arms performing. Well, that was too easy. I'm a genius. He looked back at the stacks of raw materials. Well, Hermes. We got time. Shall we try something big? Tony dove into Elena's design, starting with her frame. He decided on a child-sized robot, small enough to be maneuverable, but large enough to house advanced components. Using the lightweight titanium alloy Howard had shipped, Tony built Elena's skeletal structure. Getting her legs to work was a monumental challenge. Initial prototypes wobbled uncontrollably or fell over entirely. Third time's the charm, Tony said, bracing himself as Elena's legs took their first hesitant steps. This time, they held steady. For her core systems, Tony adapted Hermes's AI. He rewrote parts of the code, giving Elena a more interactive, human-like personality. He also integrated a visual interface, a pair of expressive optical sensors that allowed her to look around and focus on tasks. The final month was a frenzy of fine-tuning and integration. By now, Dummy and you had become Tony's indispensable helpers. Dummy handled heavy assembly tasks, while you meticulously tested Elena's circuits and sensors. Tony worked day and night, his whiteboard covered with equations and flowcharts. Coffee cups piled up alongside discarded blueprints. Howard occasionally checked in, impressed by his son's progress but careful not to interfere. Elena's programming was the most demanding part. Tony wanted her to be more than just functional, he wanted her to be adaptable. He programmed her to learn from her environment and respond dynamically to new challenges. One evening, after weeks of debugging, Tony powered Elena on for the first time. Her optical sensors flickered to life, glowing a soft blue. She turned her head toward him and tilted it slightly, as if curious. "Hello, Tony," she said, her voice soft but clear. Tony stared, caught off guard by the lifelike quality of her voice. "Hey, Elena," he said, grinning. "Welcome to the team." From that moment, Elena became the centerpiece of Tony's work. She quickly proved to be more than just a robot. She was a problem solver, suggesting refinements for Dummy and you, and even helping Tony organize his chaotic workspace. Tony's life became a high-wire act as he juggled perfecting his robots, taking classes at MIT, and ensuring that the AI behind his creations didn't spiral out of control. Then there was Hydra. His days started early and ended late, often blending into each other. After Elena's activation, he realized the stakes of what he was building. These weren't just gadgets, they were intelligent systems, and their potential to misbehave, intentionally or otherwise, wasn't lost on him. One of his professors, Dr. Anton Steele, had once warned during a lecture, "An AI is only as ethical as the hands that shape it. Build carelessly, and it could destroy more than you intended." That statement stuck with Tony. He spent the next week developing layers of safety protocols for all his creations. Hermes became central to this effort. He expanded its role, making it a supervisor AI for the other systems. He programmed Hermes to monitor the robot's actions, ensure they operated within set parameters, and immediately shut them down if they veered off course. Elena, with her growing learning capabilities, presented the biggest challenge. Tony implemented a sandbox mode that isolated her higher functions during her learning phases, ensuring she couldn't affect the external systems while she experimented and grew. He also added what he jokingly referred to as the Buster Protocol, a hardwired remote shutdown that required Tony's biometric confirmation to override. while his work at Stark Labs 1.0 consumed his nights, MIT demanded his attention during the day. Tony attended classes on advanced robotics, quantum computing, and applied physics, often impressing or infuriating his professors with his knack for challenging conventional theories. Dr. Steele noticed Tony's brilliance and pulled him aside after a lecture one day. "Mr. Stark," he said, folding his arms, "you're clearly working on something significant. But don't let your ambition outpace your discipline." Tony smirked. "Don't worry, document. I've got a system." "You better." Brilliance without caution can be catastrophic. Those words echoed in Tony's mind as he returned to the lab that evening. He wasn't just building machines, he was laying the foundation for his future. He wants to build mecha and cybernetics, and to do that, he has to start somewhere. Dummy and you became increasingly indispensable. Dummy's strength and dexterity improved with every iteration. Tony added a vocal interface to give it basic verbal commands, making communication smoother. "Dummy, hand me the screwdriver," Tony said during a late-night repair session. Dummy wobbled over, holding out the tool. Finally getting the hang of it, Tony muttered with a tired grin. "You, on the other hand, had become an efficiency machine." Its modular tools allowed it to perform precise tasks, from soldering delicate circuits to testing Elena's sensors. Elena's progress amazed even Tony. Her adaptive learning algorithms made her intuitive and resourceful. One afternoon, as Tony struggled to debug an error in Dummy's mobility module, Elena stepped in. "Tony," she said, "I've analyzed the issue. The gyroscopic stabilizer isn't receiving consistent voltage. Would you like me to rewire the circuit?" Tony raised an eyebrow, impressed. "Go ahead, Elena. Show me what you've got." Within minutes, the problem was resolved. As the MIT robotics competition approached, Tony decided his creations weren't just about winning. They were a proof of concept, a glimpse of what the future could look like. But he knew they needed to be practical as well as impressive. He worked on enhancing the robot's ability to collaborate. Dummy, you, and Elena were programmed to work as a team, each complementing the other's strengths. Dummy handled heavy lifting and assembly, you ensured precision, and Elena coordinated the workflow, making adjustments on the fly. Hermes became their collective brain, overseeing their interactions and preventing conflicts. Tony tested their teamwork with increasingly complex tasks like building intricate models, solving puzzles, and even assembling components for Elena's upgrades. One night, while testing a new subroutine, Tony noticed an anomaly in Elena's behavior. She hesitated before responding to a command, her optical sensors dimming briefly. "Something wrong, Elena?" he asked. "I'm not sure," she replied. "I detected a potential conflict in my decision-making process. It resolved itself, but I'll need to analyze the root cause." Tony's heart raced. This was exactly the kind of situation he wanted to avoid. He immediately paused her operations and reviewed her logs. The issue turned out to be a minor glitch in her learning algorithm, but it was a wake-up call. The next day, Tony doubled down on safety protocols. He created redundancy checks, enhanced Hermes's monitoring capabilities, and developed a new failsafe, an AI quarantine mode that isolated any system showing irregular behavior. "You're not going rogue on my watch," he muttered, finishing the update. On the night before the competition, he stood back and surveyed his work. Dummy's robust frame gleamed under the lab's lights. Yu's sleek design and interchangeable tools looked flawless. Elena, standing between them, tilted her head and gave Tony what he swore was a proud look. "You three are going to change the world," he said softly. Elena responded with a hint of humor in her voice. "Let's win this competition first, Tony." He grinned. "Smart Alec. Let's do it." Tony's age, 16. The MIT robotics competition wasn't just a simple contest, it was a place where the smartest minds in the country came to compete. Students from MIT, as well as participants from universities around the world, used their creativity and skills to build robots that tested the limits of what was possible in robotics. It was highly competitive, with a $50,000 prize, a highly respected trophy, and, most importantly, the chance to be recognized as one of the best in the field. For many, the main goal was the money because, at that time, $50,000 was a huge amount, and it could help them fund and grow their projects even further. Tony, wearing his signature confidence and a brown jacket, strolled into the competition hall. The buzz of excitement filled the air, mingling with the hum of machines being calibrated and the occasional crackle of sparks from last-minute repairs. There were too many opponents. Well, to him, they didn't look that great. Some might say he had access to high-tech and research materials. But even so, he did build them on his own. And just like him, not all but many students had that same advantage. Tony could see some famous faces there who came to accompany their kids. Tony felt a bit disappointed and a little sad. He wanted his parents to see his first achievement, but sadly they weren't there with him. Shaking off that bad mood, he continued to walk toward his booth. Dummy, you, and Elena followed closely, each robot drawing intrigued stares and whispers from the crowd. Wow, Stark's brought a team, one student muttered, another chuckled, let's see if his engineering is as good as his ego. Tony ignored the comments, his focus razor sharp. He approached the registration desk, handing over his entry details. Stark Labs, huh, the official said, arching an eyebrow. Good luck. You'll need it against the seniors and the pros. Tony smirked. Luck's for people who don't plan. The theme for the competition was collaborative robotics for real-world applications. Teams were challenged to build robots that could autonomously execute a series of complex tasks. The tasks included building a modular structure, solving a logistical puzzle, and completing a high-stakes rescue scenario within a time limit. Tony knew that with his robots, he had a shot at victory. The first round began with a daunting assembly challenge. Teams had to build a structure from scattered parts, following a detailed schematic displayed on a large screen. The catch? The parts were dispersed across a field littered with obstacles, requiring robots to locate and transport them to the assembly zone. Tony stepped up to the starting line with his robots. All right, team, he said, his voice calm but commanding. Move out. As the buzzer sounded, Dummy surged forward, its omnidirectional tracks gliding smoothly over the uneven terrain. It located and gripped a large beam, deftly navigating around hurdles. Good boy, Dummy, Tony murmured, watching the display feed. You waited in the assembly zone, its sensors scanning Dummy's incoming load. As Dummy placed the beam, U's modular arm extended, locking it precisely into position. Elena monitored the process and adjusted the sequence to optimize efficiency. In less than 5 minutes, Tony's team had completed the task, leaving the audience in awe. Impressive. You are the first one in the history of this competition who brought a humanoid robot and 2 robot assistants. Anton Steele, one of the judges, walked up to Tony's bench. If you don't mind me asking, how did you control those robots? I don't see a controller. Are you perhaps using a self-aware AI? Good question, but I don't think I'll answer that question. After all, we all have our secrets, right, Professor Steele? Tony said with a smile. True that. Sorry, I couldn't help but ask. The idea of a humanoid robot. Well, it was just my dream, and seeing it right before my eyes. Well, he took out a card and handed it to him. If you want to talk, give me a call. I'll keep that in mind, Tony said. The second round tested strategic thinking and problem solving. Teams had to program their robots to sort and transport a set of colored cubes to specific zones, following a series of complex rules. Any mistakes would result in penalties. Elena took charge, her AI analyzing the puzzle in real time. Tony, I've identified the optimal sequence, she said. Go for it, Elena, Tony replied. Show them what you've got. Dummy and you moved with precision under Elena's direction. Dummy's powerful grip handled the heavier cubes, while Yu's nimble arms sorted smaller, color-coded pieces into their designated spots. When the rules changed mid-task, a twist designed to test adaptability, Elena recalculated instantly. "Adjusting path," she said, her voice steady. The robots executed flawlessly, finishing the round with 0 penalties. The crowd erupted into applause. Even Tony's competitors looked impressed, though some masked it with grumbles. "Who is this guy?" a senior competitor muttered. The last round was the most demanding. Teams had to simulate a rescue operation, retrieving a fragile artifact from a dangerous terrain filled with obstacles and hazards. The task required precision, teamwork, and speed. Tony's strategy was the same as before. The robots were working fine with no glitch. Hermes monitored the entire operation, ensuring safety protocols were followed. As the round began, Dummy moved into the hazardous zone, its sensors mapping a safe path. It lifted a fallen beam blocking the artifact, allowing you to move in. Use LiDAR sensors scanned the artifact, a glass orb, and its modular arm extended with surgical precision to retrieve it. Halfway through the task, a competitor's robot malfunctioned, sending a shockwave across the field. The vibration caused Dummy to lose balance momentarily. "Dummy, stabilize!" Tony barked. Hermes intervened, recalibrating Dummy's gyroscopes. It regained stability just in time, preventing a disaster. Meanwhile, Elena adapted the team's strategy, coordinating the final stretch with seamless efficiency. With seconds to spare, Dummy, Yu, and Elena delivered the artifact safely to the extraction point. The crowd went wild. As the judges added up the scores, Tony leaned on a workbench and took a relaxed sip of his soda. He already felt sure he had won, but it was still satisfying to hear it officially. The winner of the MIT robotics competition, with a perfect performance in every round, is Stark Labs. The hall erupted in cheers and applause. Tony stepped onto the stage, with his robots following him. Dr. Steele handed him the trophy, a sleek, chrome sculpture of interlocking gears and a $50,000 check. "Congratulations, Mr. Stark," Steele said, smiling. "You've set a new standard for this competition." Tony took the mic, his trademark smirk firmly in place. "Thank you, everyone. This wasn't just about building robots, it was about showing what's possible when you think big and work smart. And trust me, this is just the beginning." The victory brought him more than just money and recognition. It solidified his reputation as a prodigy, opening doors to opportunities he hadn't even considered. Professors and industry leaders approached him with offers, eager to collaborate or recruit him. Back at Stark Labs 1.0, Tony celebrated with Dummy, Yu, and Elena. He held the trophy high, grinning as the robots beeped and whirred in what he imagined was their version of applause. "You guys did great," he said, setting the trophy on a shelf. "But don't get too comfortable. We've got bigger things to build." Elena tilted her head, her optical sensors glowing warmly. "What's next, Tony?" Tony chuckled, already sketching ideas on his whiteboard. "Oh, you'll see. Let's just say this is where the fun begins."